finding someone who makes you laugh, because life is hard. We have so many challenges thrown at us throughout our life that if you can find someone in this life that makes you laugh, that's gold right there. It really is gold, because you can let all your worries away and just laugh. Welcome to Whole-ly Chit. I am your host, Kristy Austin, here to remind you that you are whole. And chit, a Sanskrit word for pure consciousness, why we created this podcast, to raise the collective consciousness. And I want to give a big shout out to Lux Media for editing and producing this. Make sure to like and follow. They're amazing. Today, I'm super excited to introduce our guest. Our guest, not only because she's an amazing human being and is super talented, but because she is my very first, other than family, friend in the entire universe. Kelly Morneau, please.
Hi, guys.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you for asking me to be on.
Okay, Kelly, tell us who you are, other than being my very first friend.
Other than being your first friend. Okay, so I'm married. My job is I work with an incredible autistic child who's nonverbal. His name is Charlie. And I get to spend from the time he gets out of school till the time he goes to bed, and I'm with him all day. I have a coworker who does the same, so we split the time because he needs 24-hour care. And so I'm in as an aide. I work as a ABA aide to Charlie.
That's
I'm a
awesome.
caregiver.
Yes, and I've met Charlie on FaceTime many times. He's a sweetheart.
Yes, he's a big love bug. He likes to be held, cuddled. He likes Disneyland. He loves all the big rides. Some people might say not your typical.
Speaking of Disneyland, I'm wearing a Mickey shirt just for you.
Oh my gosh, super jelly.
That is something that we have in common. Like, we used to go to Disneyland every year growing up, and
Yes,
we love Disneyland, but you actually have tattoos.
I do. I will show them. Yes, I have up, and I have my one to represent my best friend, one of my other best friends, and she's a cancer survivor. So the color of the balloon is that color. And then this represents my husband and I. So there's meaning behind my crazy Disney tattoos, at least.
So speaking of cancer survivor, do you wish to share your journey with that, your healing journey? Because just to give a little background about you and I, we met in kindergarten. First day of kindergarten, we ran up to each other, gave each other a big hug as if we had known each other forever. And we were just like best friends, just like that. Now, life happens. I moved to New Mexico. You changed schools when we were, about 10? And we lost contact.
Yes. Yeah, then I went to San Diego at the same time you guys moved to, I moved to San Diego the year before you guys moved to New Mexico. So came up, and Mimi and Chuck, that was my grandparents. They had not sold their house yet. It was on the market in Palos Verdes. And so I came up for what I recall to be at least 2, maybe 3 visits, and got to see you. And then you guys moved. And then I was told from my mom, like, oh, they moved away. And I was like, and then, we lost contact during that time. And
so we reconnected via social media. So this shows you how amazing social media is. Yes, there can be a lot of faults with social media. However, it can bring people back together that haven't seen each other in years. You and I went, 20
years at least. Yes, because we've been reconnected 12, which is crazy to me. Yeah.
So we reconnected 12 years ago via social media, and it was like we had never separated. We got on the phone and we started talking. I was going through very traumatic uh experience in my life. You were going
Yes,
through quite a bit, and we then realized that we had kind of similar paths, not even knowing it. Like, we were separated for all this time, but yet we were still on this healing journey, different ways, but the same. So,
exactly.
if you want to share a little bit about your healing journey.
Yeah, so I was kind of at least out of my cancer healing journey, but I was on a new um emotional journey for sure. I was ready to, like, I hit 30 and had just survived cancer. I had thyroid cancer and lymphoma. It had gone into my lymph nodes. I have a scar no one can see because I really took amazing care of it. Have an aunt who's a nurse, so I had some great tricks. And it
And where's
falls
that
right in the
from?
crease. Yeah,
Okay.
it falls right in this crease, so it really just looks like everyone's neck does as you get older, especially if you have a good doctor, which I had one of the best in the country, so I was beyond blessed. Um, and a family who was really supportive because I had just lost my dad's insurance at the time. I was only 27 and he worked in the motion picture business. So I went from having all this great insurance to no insurance at all. And family started to, chip in, pay for biopsy, all that kind of thing. And then the doctor I received was from the doctor we were paying. He said, I have a doctor who does, he's the best at UCLA, and he does one free surgery like a month for teaching. And I was like a pro bono? And he was like, yes. And thinking it's not really as big of a deal as it ended up being, we ended up kind of prolonging it. And he, when the surgery was over, was like, I'm sorry I pushed you back 2 months. And I said, why? He goes, well, you were in for 8 hours. And I said, well, that's what my mom said. But that doesn't seem right. I thought it was like a 4 hour surgery. He goes, it moved into your lymph nodes, Kelly. And we knew it was in your lymph nodes, but I didn't know how big it was. So it was a 3 year healing journey physically. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything those first 3.5 months without my mother's assistance. Going from my room to the bathroom was exhausting. I do think, whether it's the universe or there's a God out there, whatever it is, that we were very close, because she had to do everything for me. And she, as hopefully most mothers do, she stepped up to the plate. She would help bathe me. She would help anytime I'd be like, Mom, I can't get up. She'd be like, I'm coming. She made all my meals, what I could eat at least or get down. So yeah, I had just kind of, when we reconnected, I had just finished that 3 year part of the journey. And I was just ready to, like, okay, I've got to get back into the workforce. I've got to start all over. This is terrifying. I'm not looking forward to this. I feel like I don't know anything anymore. And I had spent 15 years in um like the corporate world. I worked for Barnes and Noble and Borders and all these big companies as a manager. I had never had a job where I wasn't a manager since I was like 21 years old. So I had really worked in that kind of an industry and was like, do I go back there? What do I do? But also I'm 30 now. I want a family. I want a husband. I want a life that way too. How do I make this work? And I had a girlfriend push me and be like, Kelly, just because you did lose your thyroid, which caused you to gain all this weight. And I know you feel very insecure. However, you are a person that has so much to give to somebody. And there's someone out there, you're working to lose all this weight. You've already lost 20 pounds. You'll keep going. Put yourself out there. And she got me on to sign up for how she had met her husband and on a dating app and spent 6 months, like did a 6 month uh like subscription because it's not going to take you 5 minutes to find somebody unless you're on something that's quick. And we didn't have quick back then. There was no Tinder or whatever. It was longer processes. And I didn't want to be in one of those ones that was free. And I didn't want to be in one because I felt like men in that was more bar scene for me. And I didn't want bar scene. I wanted someone like my husband. And I had very specifics of what I wanted. And I saw his profile and really truly like read it, saw how intelligent he was, how funny he was, and it it felt right. So I reached out actually to him first. And that's just kind of, it went from there. But it took me about 4.5 months to meet him. And then um that was a person that even though I've learned to control other people's emotions being brought into me, I let his in really quick. You're someone that, like you said, we separated for not talking for a long time, and now we talk all the time. And it's like every time we get together, no time has passed. I think that first day of school, as my mother describes it, and your mom, it was like our souls knew each other, right? So we
Mhm.
did. We ran to each other, shouted each other's name in each other's faces, and put each arms around each other, walked to that classroom like we'd known each other. So we probably looked a little bit like the dynamic duo who did know each other. um and I think that always made me feel very secure, that I have that outgoing personality to not be afraid. I was born with that. That is something that's been talked about my whole life. You came out with like jazz hands, like, "Hi, I'm Kelly, let me entertain you." So I believe that's part of it, but my husband's very much the yin to my yang. He is very outgoing, very talkative in a different way than I am. So, and he had all the qualities that I really wanted. I never had anybody in my life make me laugh. I was always the funny one. Every relationship, everything I ever did, I was the entertaining one. That's how I was in my family. That's how I was kind of seen by my friends. And my husband, Chris, makes me laugh almost every day. Not every day, but almost every single solitary day. It's almost like it's a goal of his. When we don't see each other, it's maybe even just through a text, and I'm like, "Oh man, he got me." Like, okay, I'm having a bad day, and he made it for 5 seconds better. So I let his energy in really quick because I had the same vibe with him that I'd had with no other man. And that was our date that was supposed to be, in my mind, maybe an hour, was 8.5.
Wow.
So it was like, I spent the entire day with this man, and now I'm into the evening, and I'm going home, mind you, but we didn't want to leave each other, and I never had that with anybody, ever in my life. So for the first time after all these months and all these years of thinking like, I'm never gonna find anybody, I'm never gonna have that partner, all of a sudden I did. And it was all very fast. Some people might say, but we even when we had a bump in the road, my husband said, we worked it out, we talked it out all day long, we've moved past it. To me, it feels like it happened years ago, but I do know logically it just happened last week. I do understand that. And he actually said it to a therapist. That we went to, because I was like, I'm not just going to get back together. We really need to make sure we're both on the same page with this particular topic. And he said, I'll do whatever you want to do. Like, I'm okay with that, and was very open to it. And he goes, is it strange for me to say that? And I said, no, actually, I feel the same way. I feel like it just happened. It did happen. It didn't just happen. It happened years ago because of how deep we went into conversation about it, how honest we were with each other, and truthful. That it's our relationship is rare, and I do know that, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for it. um, I know how lucky I am because I have a lot of friends who have not been so lucky.
Yes, and I think that's really important also, the fact that you mentioned laughter, finding someone who makes you laugh, because life is hard. We
So
have so many challenges thrown at us throughout our life, that if you can find someone in this life that makes you laugh,
yeah.
that's gold right there. It really is gold, because you can let all your worries away and just laugh. Laughter is
Mm,
so healing. Laughter has been known to heal and cure people of illness. So it's actually, there's laughing yoga. Not even,
right.
there's a laughing yoga. There's all different kinds of yoga, but laughing yoga, that's because it is really so healing. So if you can find someone in this life that will be by your side and make you laugh, that's powerful. And
Very,
um,
especially for me. Right.
Believing Before Seeing, a new bestseller by Candace Barr. Order your copy today.
The first person to tell me I was maternal was Sister Mary Frances at St. John's Fisher. Like, we were 7, and she was like, "You like they're all fighting, and you're making peace. Like, you were the one that would go off with one of our other friends and just ignore that like drama going on, right? I couldn't ignore the drama. So it wasn't I wanted to be involved in it in getting in the fight. I wanted to make the fight go away. I wanted all the peace. I wanted everybody to stop fighting. So I would get in the middle of these stupid fights between 7-year-olds, and I would be telling them, try to hear the other person's side. Like, she's feeling like this, you're feeling like this. I get it. Don't talk to each other for a minute, maybe. Like, everybody. And one day at school, I will never forget this. I went in, I've had it up to here with you people. That probably came from my mother, probably came from like watching even maybe one of my aunts. I have no idea. But I really did. Like, I literally did that. And a few moments later, Sister Mary Frances walked up and goes, I watch you every day on this playground. Kelly, you're super maternal. And I said, what does that mean? She explained it. And I'm thinking, a nun is telling me about this? Like, this is kind of weird. And I went home and I talked to my mom about it. She said, you're going to make an incredible mother someday. I don't know how to tell it. I don't know how to describe it. I just know it. People gravitate to you, Kelly. It's been like that since you were little. Um, I would be in my crib waving to people as I walked on what was called the Esplanade in San Diego. The first 3 years of my life, we lived in San Diego. So they would be walking by. My crib was by the window. All the ladies who walked really fast in the 80s, like in their aerobic outfits, they were older and they'd be walking by and be waving like at 2, like, hi, and be like, hi, Kelly. Like, it was just, I came out like this. So, but then there was also the side of my brain that was like, well, these are the things you want. My grandmother had 7 children. My mom only decided to have one. My mom chose to have one. She goes, I got my girl, and that was all I needed. I had a bunch of siblings. So maybe that was part of it for her. She didn't want to have like more than 2 kids if she had had another child, but that was her thing. She always said, I got my girl and I was happy. And I was like, man, I really wish I had a sibling to bitch about you like with, but like, okay, this was I was blessed with a lot of cousins for a long time that I was really close with. Family gets older and drifts apart, but I had that growing up. So I think that helped me too, um, with that kind of stuff, in
So
that regard.
when we
Yeah.
reconnected, we were both talking about our spiritual journeys, healing journeys, things that we were into and doing. And I was talking about my yoga and meditation. And then we got into crystals and chakras. And you told me about this really cool gift that you have that I never knew about. So
Yeah.
we share with us a little bit about because you can see auras. Can you share
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
that started?
yeah, most people when they say they can see an aura or you go on the internet, they'll tell you, it surrounds the person. It's around their whole body. Um, and I guess to an extent that is true. I think everybody's gift is different. Um, the first time this happened, I was 7. The way that I see color, and you can call me an empath. People say that to me now, but and I think that's being around a lot of people who are in this healing journey, this place of crystals, awareness, like really yoga, doing all the thing, meditate, a lot of meditation. I think a big part for me was I was just always picking up on everybody's energy. I could always feel when everybody was upset and I wanted to fix it. And there was a lot of upset in my mom's family. There just was. There was just a lot. So maybe from a very young age, I was already picking up on all of that, probably before I could even talk. But the first time it happened, I was 7, and my stepdad, George, came home from a very like short day in the grand scheme of things. It was probably a 12-hour day. But as you know, he worked in the motion picture business and he would work 18, no, 19-hour days. Sometimes he'd be gone before I woke up and back home before I, went to bed. But this happened to be a day he came home in the afternoon. And my mom picked me up early from my grandmother's and we went to out to dinner. But before we went out to dinner, he came home and there were fireworks going off him. So the way that I see an aura color is it's going off around you like fireworks for me. And he was just red. Now, as I've gotten older and learned more about it, I understand we have three. And that's why, as I've gotten older, learn to control it, because it can be too much for me. It can be way too much feeling. It can be pressing on me. It's almost like I'm feeling what if it's coming from their throat chakra, their head chakra, their third eye, their uh, how do you say it? Solar plex. Thank you. Then I can feel like maybe that's where I'm feeling pain of some kind, but usually it's heavy on my heart. Usually it's my heart or my throat that feels like it clogs up. But it's like fireworks. So went right to my mom and said, George is red, George is red, George is all red. And she was like, well, he has rosacea. It makes your face pink. And da, da. I was like, no, 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 no. Like fireworks, fireworks. And I don't know if my mom has a lot of anxiety. I carry a lot of anxiety. She didn't tell me I was wrong. She didn't say, no, okay. Like, she didn't push it away. She was like, okay, well, like, are you feeling okay about it? Like, I said, well, no, he's not okay. He's not okay. And she said, well, then why don't you go, like, see if maybe he wants to talk to you. And I went and sat on his lap, and as you know, my stepdad is very large man. Everyone thinks of him as the gentle giant, but that's really not. It's not his height. It's not that he's 6'8". It's not that he has a 17 size shoe and he's this giant of a man. He has this energy, so that surrounds you when you're with him. He's a calm for you in a very large chaos of storm sometimes. You can be standing with him, and my mom did explain it the best to me. She said, I said, you know that energy you feel around him? She said, yeah. I said, I don't know how to pinpoint it. She said, well, for mommy, it's like he steps inside my soul, and I'm his wife. So maybe that's what I'm saying, like, because it's a deeper bond. Um, and I thought that was so beautiful. I thought that's what I want to find someday. I want to find a man who makes me feel like that. They step inside me just by hugging me. And I can say that I found that. However, with George, he really did settle. The minute I went over to him and put my arms around him, this little kid sitting on his lap going, what went on today? What happened on the set or whatever, or what's happening with Uncle Hershey? Like, what happened? I'm acting like a happy kid, but nervous. I remember feeling nervous inside, and him saying, oh, I'm just, it's good, it's fine. And I was like, I knew it wasn't fine, but I didn't know how to articulate that to a grown adult. I'm a little kid. So I just started talking to him about my day. I was like, oh, so we did this, and Kristy and I did that, and whatever. There was all these things, whatever happened at school. Mom picked me up early, and we're going out to dinner. And like, I believe I just started rambling like I tend to do. And all of a sudden, the dark red that I had been seeing pop started to lighten up. And I remember days went by before I tried to explain that, like explaining it to my mom. Like, when people are feeling a certain way, I see these colors. And I think she thought, because I was so audio visual, that was maybe my way of explaining it. It was Kelly's way of expressing what she's feeling. So I'm not going to tell her she's wrong. I'm not going to say what she's feeling is incorrect. I don't want to suppress anything Kelly feels ever. I don't want to make her. My mom made it very clear from a young age, Kelly, no one in this lifetime or world has the right to tell you your feelings are wrong. They can disagree with your feelings, but it doesn't make them wrong. It's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to tell them their feelings are wrong. Don't ever tell a friend how their feeling is incorrect, because it's not. It's how they feel, and you need to respect that. So I think she took it as like, this is how you feel. And maybe that was Kelly's way of, expressing it. She felt, she saw something. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I don't really know. I've never really dived into it with my mother too much. She's just always called me like super empathetic. Like, you feel everything. You cry at the drop of a hat. I'll be in a restaurant with my husband, Chris, and I will start crying. And of course, the waiter always tends to come up right at that moment. And you're like, I'm not mad at my husband. I promise, I'm talking about something else. Like, I'm fine. I don't need any more water. So it can be embarrassing, but it really does depend on the energy in the room. And as I got older, I thought, well, I have to figure out how to handle this because it's too much for me. It's too hard at times. I don't know how to handle it. And so I started talking to people in the world of meditation and Reiki and healing, and found other people like myself who felt things from other people, didn't know how to describe it themselves, didn't see color. Some I met a woman who did, and she taught me how to control it. And what I mean by control it was maybe meditate a few minutes to yourself before you walk in a room. And if it's a room you know you're safe in, Kelly, just let the energy in and then sit back, do the best you can to shut your mouth. Um, but that was something that I had to learn. It was okay to let in those, if it popped around someone, it popped, and just bring it in and then let the person talk. And it's never my intention to talk too much, though I do. That is related probably to my ADD for sure. But I've always been a storyteller. It's how I get my stuff across, it's just always part of who I've been. And I think I felt like I had to be the entertaining one in my family because I felt like I wasn't the prettiest. I was not smart. I had dyslexia, so I wasn't as smart as everyone else. And so I was in this box of Kelly's funny and empathetic, and she's sweet and these kinds of things. So George was the first person that impacted me that way. And it makes sense because he's so his soul, his energy in general, you feel it when you're with him. And I remember telling one of my close friends who passed away during COVID. She was a much older person than I was, and a neighbor to my parents. She was invited to my husband and my wedding. And I told Gail, it's I don't know how to describe George. I know he takes everyone's trash out in the neighborhood. I know he does this. Everybody loves him. I know you love him. But when has he ever hugged you? And she said, no, George has never hugged me. I said, when he hugs you, I'm telling you, it's like he steps inside your soul. That's all. My mom described it the best. She's not wrong. And after the very night of my wedding, when Gail went to hug me goodbye, she said, Kelly, George hugged me. And oh my God. And I said, I know. I don't know if he's even part of the reason I am as empathetic, because I've done the nature versus nurture thing in my head a million different times, being that I had four parents growing up and two grandparents who were very invested in my childhood. So there is a little piece of me that is very much like him, very much feels the way he does. But my mom is also very sensitive. My dad was a different type of sensitive. He was very outgoing the way I am. My mom was very outgoing the way I am. They were both big talkers. My dad, Dickie, would have called it bowsing. That's what we're doing right now. Instead of, men didn't gossip, they bows. So that was just, we would always joke about that, but even his energy was, different than George's. George is more like my husband, Chris. I know they say we marry our fathers or our mothers or whatever. My husband, Chris, and George, their energy is very similar. It's very similar. They are very outgoing men, very sweet, very funny. But they don't need their wives at a party. They'll go off on their own, find their tribe of person at the party that they feel a connection with, and they're good. Chris is the first man I ever had that didn't need to be coddled the whole time I was with him. I was so thrilled I couldn't see straight. I didn't like that. I never liked the boyfriend who had to be on top of me. The first time, sure, I had a family of 40 people sometimes at a holiday. That's a lot of people. But after that first, second, third time, like, you can go talk to my uncle, talk to my grandpa, talk to whoever. They could never do it. And Chris could. He still can. On George's side of the family, it's very large as well. And he has his people, and he's like, hey, and he'll talk to everybody, make sure he says hello to everybody. But he has one of my cousins in particular that they have a lot in common, and they'll talk the whole time, and it's like no one else is there for them, and that's fine. They're laughing, they're having a good time, and then it brings a crowd of other cousins around them because they're like, well, what are Chris and so talking about? And that happens at functions, at parties that we go to with Chris's friends. I don't need him and he doesn't need me. And my parents were like that. So I think I picked up on that too. My stepmom didn't need my dad. She can find her people and she's very outgoing, but she's more like my husband Chris and like my stepdad. It's why they're my parents were never meant to be. They would never have made it maybe more than 5 years, and they would have stayed together those 5 years for me. Um, but and that's okay.
Where can people find you if they're looking for someone to read their aura or for someone to help with that they have autistic children? Where can they find you?
On Instagram, it's at Kelly. So Kel, so KELL underscore and then YOUGS. So like think of it as like Kellogg's. My last name's Youger, technically by non-law, but that's my husband's last name. So that's my Instagram. You can reach out to me privately. And I will be happy to talk to anybody. It's open. It's not closed. I don't have it closed to anybody. But
And
yeah,
are you open to working with other odds, or are you too
yeah.
busy at this time?
No, I'm open completely. I feel like maybe it's time for a new chapter. I'm not sure. There seems to be a lot of things telling me that right now, so we'll see. Yeah, I'm not close to anything
Well, we'll make
ever.
sure we'll plug in your Instagram, any websites or anything people can
No,
contact
I
you.
didn't. I never thought to do anything like that, to be honest. I
Okay,
never
so
really thought about it. Yeah.
easiest way to get a hold of you.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll have
For
to have
now,
you back on because there's so much you and I can talk about. You and I can just ramble on forever.
we
But thank
could.
you so much for being here. I love you. I appreciate you.
I love you more.
Make sure you stay tuned for next week's episode of Whole-ly Chit.